Hi, I'm Lucas,
And I'm Brion.
and this is the Quax podcast. Hey guys, so I have a fun episode for you guys today. We talk about Kava Kava bars with a guy who works at a Kava Kava bar. Now, at a certain point, he says he's done Kava for 7 months. I believe he meant 7 years. But anyway, enjoy the show, enjoy Brion's crazy antics, and I'll talk to you soon. Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast. Episode 51, I am here with Brion. Hey Brion, how's it going, man?
I'm well. How are you today, sir?
I am doing really well. We're actually sharing a mic today because we have a special guest with us, Ben Bush. Is that your name?
Yep, that's me. How's it going, guys?
Doing well. So I met Ben a couple weeks ago. I was actually down at a Kava bar with a few friends just to try things out, and we were chatting. And Ben was like, "Oh, you have a podcast? I'll be on your podcast." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, if somebody invites themselves onto your podcast, you have to have them on your podcast." Yeah, so Brion says yes. So anyway, we have Ben today. We're going to talk about Kava. All right, so let's talk about Kava. So if people don't know what Kava is this, it's basically a small shrub, I think. It's native to the islands of the South Pacific. The root and stems are basically made into a kind of a non-alcoholic beverage, and it's really popular in like Hawaii and Fiji and just South Pacific islands. And it's basically a traditional drink. It's prepared, it's squeezed with water, and you kind of drink it a little bit. And then I tried it, a couple weeks ago, and it kind of gives you this nice, kind of happy feeling. The best way to describe it, it's almost like alcohol without the buzz, meaning you've had a few drinks and you're kind of walking around and you're like, yeah, things are new. Things are, what could the night bring? It's like that with alcohol, but with Kava, you kind of have the same thing, but without the buzz. I don't know. That's the best way to describe it for me.
It loosens your inhibitions.
Yeah, it does. It loosens your inhibitions a little bit. So Ben here he works at the Kava bar, so he's kind of the master, the maestro about all things Kava. So
Something like that.
yeah. So you've been using Kava for a while. How long have you been using it?
Yeah, I've been using Kava for like 7 months. It was funny, the first time that I had Kava, I actually didn't know what it is. I was playing rugby, and I wasn't 21 yet, so after the game, I was playing with some Fijian guys, and they're like, "Oh, you can't drink yet, just have this." And so we just started drinking Kava. And it's funny because a lot of people don't really know about the reverse tolerance in Kava. It's the complete opposite of like alcohol or marijuana, where like if you overdo it the first like couple of times, you're just going to be completely out of it. Kava, you want to drink like tons of it. And then over time, you need less and less. And it was funny because by the first couple of games, I had a lot of fun with it. But by the third game, by like the 10th bowl, I was like, holy crap, like this is insane.
Yeah, that's really interesting, the whole reverse tolerance to it. So this is something Ben told me when I was at the Kava bar. He said, I was drinking it and we're kind of like, all right, this is good. And he's like, you want to do a lot of it all at once because it kind of gets into your system. And then over time, you have to do less and less of it. And do you know why that is? Do you know how that works at all?
It's like how it like filters through the endocrine system. So it essentially it's just like how your body absorbs it. Similar to like a little similar to how CBD works. Kava also hits in through like the CB1 receptor. So like where CBD works better over time with like prolonged use, it's similar to that kind of.
Okay, interesting. So I don't know. Do you know any of the history behind Kava or
well,
what
so it's a ceremonial beverage. So essentially, on any of like those islands, and like Hawaii being like like the most well known one, and then like Fiji and Vanuatu being much smaller, Tonga, any of like the Samoan islands, really, it's they've been using it there in ceremonial rituals for, pretty much as long as like you can go back in their history. And it's funny, like one of the original stories, like way back, like thousands of years ago, in the rituals, they used to take the virgin girls and they would make them chew on the root all day. And then after they would chew on it for a while, they would spit it into a bowl, and that's what they served. And they served it that way because they figured it would be cleanest if the virgin girls did it.
I will add that I first tried Kava in Fiji, went through the whole ritual. I was like the only I was the only white guy in the village, non-Fijian, I should say. And I felt very honored to be there. But what I noticed very quickly is that all of the women were straining the kava and serving it to the men folk who were all seated on this, bure floor. in cross-legged fashion, yet they weren't drinking it and they weren't allowed to participate in the ceremony, which is culturally part of it too. The women do it on their own in behind closed doors, which I found interesting. Not quite as misogynistic as having virgins spit the kava into a bowl, but
that was a long time ago. That was like that. I mean, we're talking
20 years,
like
30 years,
thousands of years. Yeah.
No, I understand that. But no, it was an incredible experience. And I immediately was struck by the fact that my face was numb, much the same way that I heard cocaine does, that I heard it through the grapevine. But but I felt very similar to that. And then the euphoria that Lucas was describing is exactly what I felt like, being drunk without being, lightheaded and kind of dizzy and all that stuff. Inhibitions lowered, felt really happy, and slept like a champion the first night.
For sure. I mean, it's a root tea, so it's gonna numb your tongue out. Like ginger is kind of like the most common example when you get like that little like tingliness, but kava is gonna be that, but like incredibly amplified.
Why did you go to Fiji?
I was actually, why do I need an excuse to go to Fiji? It was actually a stopover on the way to Australia. So I went to Fiji, and then I went to the North Island of New Zealand, and then Sydney, Australia. Yeah, where I lived for a while.
All right, you're full of stories. So why would people want to try this?
Well, I mean, so essentially, I mean, it's a completely different like social kind of gathering than like most of the common like alcohol happy hours and bars. I mean, you can, for a lot of people that, I mean, there's all sorts of, difficulties with alcohol. Kava, I mean, you can drive, you can go to work. I mean, you can drink it on your lunch break and then go back to work and be totally fine. Essentially, your body's just going to feel nice and loose and relaxed. It is a little bit of, of a psychoactive. So, I mean, you are going to get a little bit of it mentally, but you can drive and all that fun stuff. So you really get a lot of the fun, and you can really drink a ton of it. It's not like something where like, if you drink too much of it, you're going to like pass out or like yak your guts out. I mean, really, for a lot of people that have ever like, really had issues with like binge drinking or anything like that, one of the coolest parts about kava is you can just go to the bowl for days. It's great.
Let me just ask, because I know that there's a question about liver toxicity. So when you say drink, till your heart's content, have you heard anything, about that?
So kava is definitely filtered through the liver, but it's really like, unless you're like also taking like heavy pharmaceuticals that are also filtered through the liver, it's not really gonna like, it's not gonna like kill your liver. I mean, there's like thousands of years worth of like like kava use in the islands, and it's not like those people are like dropping dead from liver failure. So there was a study in Germany in the early 2000s where they got a lot of contaminated product. A lot of it was called like 2-day kava, and that's like when you buy kava, you want to buy only like noble kava, like noble certified kava, because there are types of it like called 2-day that is essentially poisonous, and so like some of that like can hurt your liver for sure. But if you get like good kava, it's not going to hurt your liver.
Yeah, I heard about that German and the 2-day, and they kind of went back and they said, whoops, we used probably the wrong kava.
There were a lot of shipping difficulties. I mean, they were not prepared to ship nearly the amount of kava that the Germans ordered. Like all of a sudden they just showed up and they're like, hey, can we like Ron Swanson style, can we have all your kava? Not like some of the eggs, all the kava. So it was, I mean, they just pretty much shipped whatever they could get their hands on at the time.
Yeah. So I actually did a little more research into the whole liver thing, and there was a study, there was like an experiment or something like that in 2010. And basically what they found, it was the Journal of the Federation of American Societies for Experimental Biology. And basically they found that one of the compounds of kava is called flavokawin, I don't know, FKB.
Sure.
Basically, it kills liver cells. And what they found was that when kava extracts were used in a solvent, so like alcohol or something like that, it would really concentrate this one thing that killed liver cells. But if you use a water extract, which is the traditional method, you didn't get that. And so probably part of why the whole liver thing is going on is there's a lot of kava extracts out there for sale that are alcohol based, and they're probably concentrating this, toxic liver compound or whatever.
Well, and absolutely. And I mean, it's the one thing you should keep in mind with kava. It's pretty new. Like the amount of kava that's out there right now is like growing exponentially. And especially with extracts, I mean, it's not super regulated. People can kind of just put things on a label and call it whatever they want as far as extracts go. And it's just really like, like honestly, if you're going to buy a kava from someplace and they don't have a lab printout or they don't have access to that kind of stuff, then just like don't get it, because I mean, so many of those extracts nowadays that you can find online are not just kava. Like people mess with that stuff all the time.
So if people do use kava, they should probably get just the powdered kava root in capsules, or maybe the powder by itself. And then how do you brew it? Like, what do you do with it?
So essentially, you want like 1 gram to 1 ounce water, like a 1-to-1 ratio. You don't want to boil the water, because if you boil the water, you're going to boil all the sediment out. So and essentially, you want the hottest water you can get out of your sink. So hot water, but not boiling. And then you can buy nylon mesh bags online. You throw all of the root into the bag, and then you steep it for about 10 minutes. And then for another 10 minutes, you massage it aggressively. Like you squeeze the root in the water, and as you do it, you'll see the water turn like a brown color, and you'll see kind of like that stuff changing. And if you do that, like honestly, if you just turn on like an episode of That 70s Show and massage it for that long, you're going to get some incredible kava.
Okay. And what does it taste? I mean, I tasted it. It's kind of like a dirt taste, right?
Honestly, it is one of the hardest parts about selling kava. It is not going to taste good. Like it's really, if you like really like earthy, like dark black, like tea kind of things, that's what you're getting into. And I mean,
but if you're not a 90-year-old English grandmother from Hungary, do you guys sweeten it up at all at the kava bar? That's why.
So we don't do it. We take more of kind of like the new age, like kind of like lifestyle, like health approach to kava. We don't really do like the old school, like bohemian, like kind of more like hippie style. We're definitely not like against that in any ways. Like we'll absolutely do like the bowl and everything, but most of our business is in kava mocktails.
So let's talk a little bit more about just like some of the benefits. I was looking through some research, and Self-Hacked, which is a great website, they have a whole big article on kava. So just some of the cool things it does. Let's see, like menopausal women, it's known to basically help with mood for menopausal women, and it does not affect any of the estrogen they might be taking or anything like that. There was a 2003 clinical study that looked at that, and it also significantly increased libido in women, which is something. Is that something you've seen?
Yeah, so it's definitely like a light aphrodisiac. That's definitely part of it. And I've definitely had friends that have had like good luck when it's like that time of the month with kava helping for that.
Really?
Yeah. So like that's definitely, there's a couple of, I know because a couple of the girls that work at the bar, they drink more kratom than kava.
Okay.
But when that time of the month comes around, they'll definitely drink more kava, and they say it helps.
Do you serve kratom as well?
We serve kratom, yeah, too.
In cocktail form or mocktail?
In mocktail form. We do both. It's really interesting to sell them together because they are in a lot of ways kind of inverses of each other,
right,
even though they're both like teas. But yeah, they we definitely sell them together. Of all of the kava tenders there, I drink the most kava. I think a lot of the other ones drink more kratom than I do.
Really?
For sure. Yeah.
Kratom is a little more core, but I also know that they both give you that feeling of everything's not that bad. Everything's okay.
For sure. I mean, kratom is going to be like significantly more energizing. So like specifically like the whites, like the white Mangdas, those are specific. Those are going to give you a pretty good ride. I think I'll use those before like 10-mile runs, or if it's like my heavy day at the gym, I got to lift a lot of weights. I'll use kratom for that. But kava is definitely like the relaxing one for sure.
Cool. So just some other research. Single dose of kava, 300 milligrams, improved accuracy and performance in attention, visual processing, and working memory tasks. This was a small trial, like 20 people. Is that something else you noticed, kind of like a boost in brain ability?
For sure. And I mean, I think specifically nowadays, I mean, because, people work so hard and they work longer nowadays. And I think people take less breaks. And sometimes like I found, like when people come into the kava bar during the lunch hour, everyone's pulling out the laptops, they're still doing stuff. But I tend to find, after a couple kava drinks, they just tend to kind of like settle in, and they kind of like leave a little bit of that like anxiety weight behind them, and it tends to be easier to just do stuff.
So there's more stuff on kava for like addiction and people who have addictive personalities or some kind of addiction problem. Do you talk to anybody who uses it for that?
Oh yeah, I was a bar manager for like 6 years. I've been in the bar and restaurant scene for a long time, and I can tell you firsthand that I wasn't really looking for it, but like I'm starting to get closer to 30, so I was definitely not drinking as much as I used to, and a ton of bartenders a lot of times like will take a couple of nights off and just drink kava instead, and every single one of them just is like, wow, I sleep better, I feel better. It's really like a life-changing thing, and obviously, honestly, if you want to go out some nights and get drinks, like that's totally fine, but like for as like consistent use, and also like if you have issues with binge drinking, because kava you can just really have a go.
So with do you see a lot of teetotalers then come in, people who don't drink or people who are off the sauce, who come in looking for an alternative, still want that kind of social atmosphere, maybe on the pool, still looking to get that bar experience, but are kind of doing something that's beneficial to them in a way? Yeah,
absolutely. And I mean, so it's interesting because a lot of AAs are like, are kind of anti-kava. They still think, well, because they still think it's a substance. And so a lot of them are like all or nothing, but, because there's bartender AA groups nowadays, there's like AA meditations. And so a lot more people are starting to use kava as a way to, to just like, put them in a scene. And honestly, the social scene is so attached to alcohol. Like if you, like people come in on dates and drink kava, like, people come in, for happy hour specials, just, like go out and do stuff while they still work. So it's honestly, in a little bit of what the kava bar is trying to do. It's kind of a little bit of a social revolution almost.
So can people actually do alcohol and kava together, or is that not good?
I would not recommend it. I mean, like, can you? Like, sure. I mean, it's interesting, since people worry so much about their liver on kava, and I mean, alcohol is like the worst thing you could do for your liver. I mean, it's like, like if you're worried about your liver, don't drink tequila. Like, I don't know what else to tell you on that one.
Yeah, well, that's what I did actually. I mean, when we were at the kava bar, we went and had a beer afterwards. It was nice. Let me tell you, you kind of got the double whammy.
It's a cool feeling. Definitely, I think if you do that over long periods of time, I think you're gonna find some real grogginess the next day, and not so much like the pain style hangover, but just like the, you just like can't get any momentum the next day kind of thing.
Now, herb and kava, that's a different story altogether. We won't talk about that tonight. But they do mix well, from what I hear on the blogs.
Good to know.
I can agree with that. Yeah.
So if people are gonna go try it, they're gonna come down to a kava bar and drink some kava. What can they expect when they take it? Like when they take that first sip, like what's their experience gonna be like?
So one of the best things you can do if it's your first time and ahead of time going into it, don't eat anything. And I know that sounds weird because a lot of times when you take stuff like this, it's like you want to have a little something in your system. But kava, because of the reverse tolerance, the first couple of times, really go into it on an empty stomach, and kind of in the same way as, like the ceremonial rituals they used to use kava for, those always preceded meals. So it's kind of like similar, like go out, have a couple of kavas, don't eat anything, and then eat afterwards.
Okay, so other than an empty stomach, is there anything else that they can do to kind of make their experience better?
Just go into it with an open mind. It's gonna be different than anything than you've ever had. It's very un-American. Like, you're not really going to find anything like it. It is going to numb your tongue out, so know that. If you have it straight up, it's not going to taste that great. And I think the other thing too is try to, after you take it, try to walk to the next restaurant or spend some time ride your bike around or do something like that. Because I think the first time, when you're drinking it, you're not really going to notice that much seated. But when you start moving around, you start just walking around your city or whatever, that's when you'll kind of start to notice how loose your muscles are.
Interesting. And so when they take that first sip, they're basically their tongue's going to get a little bit numb. Are they going to instantly feel like more relaxed, or does it kind of take a while?
The first time it's going to take a while. And I mean, specifically, you need at least like 5 or 6 servings the first time to really feel it. It's definitely, it's kind of like one of those like prescriptions your doctors give you where they're like, even after you feel better, keep taking it. It's kind of like Kava's like one of those where it's like, you kind of got to like the first couple of times just really commit to drinking Kava. And by like the third or fourth time, like you'll feel it. I remember, I'll never forget that third rugby game when I just started drinking Kava like I was the last couple of times. And all of a sudden I was just like glued to the chair. I was like, this is great.
Well, when you're taking it, you say during a rugby game, is it something
After the rugby
after the rugby game? Okay, so if you were taking it during a physical activity, is it something that dehydrates you?
So I wouldn't necessarily say that it dehydrates you, but it certainly does not hydrate you in any way. I know there was like a Burning Man party at this one bar near my house, and me and my roommate, rather than drinking, we decided we just made a giant bowl of Kava, and we each had like, I think it was some absurd amount, like 12 or 14 shells. Like we really went for it. And the next day we both woke up and we're like, man, like, not hungover, but just, and we kind of both went to the bathroom. We were like, oh, we're dehydrated. We are really dehydrated. And it was, so it was definitely one of those where it's like, make sure to get a little, like if you're going to really go for it, make sure to get a glass of water in there.
So other than the liver stuff we talked about earlier, are there any drawbacks? I mean, does it give you kind of a hangover the next day? I mean,
I wouldn't say it gives you a hangover. I mean, if you're like, because also like keep in mind, like we were drinking it in Phoenix, Arizona in August where it's like 100 degrees. So I mean, you're kind of going to be dehydrated no matter what you do if you don't drink any water. So I wouldn't say that it gives you much of a hangover or anything like that. I think sometimes if you drink a ton of it, the next morning, like you might start a little slow maybe, but that's the worst case scenario. Like and a lot of it too is I think that you wake up after sleeping like a million bucks, which a lot of people don't do. I think a lot of people generally sleep poorly nowadays, it seems. So it's like, I think a lot of people just wake up slow. So like, man, that's like the best 9 hours of sleep I've ever gotten in my life.
Oh, nice. That sounds good. So one other thing I want to put in, this is from the NIH. They concluded that the risk of liver damage from taking Kava was less than 1 in 1 million. So you're more likely to be struck by lightning than have liver damage from Kava. So that's pretty. That's a pretty good stat.
It sounds about right, and because it is, like it's not. It makes sense to say that Kava is filtered through the liver, so it's not like something to like, completely like throw aside, but. I think for me, like the fact that this many people like freak out about it when alcohol is this prominent is just kind of weird. Like it feels weird to me.
Yeah, I mean, prescription drugs are killing, hundreds of thousands of people a year, so you just got to pick your poison, I guess. So, do you have any stories about Kava of people using it, I don't know, short-term, long-term? Like what have you heard?
Well, so one of the funny long-term stories, cuz a lot of times like when you're like the new guy drinking Kava and you run into a bunch of islanders who have been drinking this stuff for years and they know all about it. At the bar, there's a bunch of really cool Tongan dudes that come in and they order it by the bowl and they love their Tongan Kava. Specifically, like, do not give them Vanuatu or Fijian. They want Kava from the Kingdom of Tonga, specifically the Kingdom.
Before we go on, could you really quick explain what the difference is between those? Because I don't think we covered that.
Sure, absolutely. So the Tongan Kava tends to be a little bit lighter. And it's more of a social kava. So it's going to chill you out, but it's going to keep you a little talkative. It's best for people with like social anxiety. Like if you're just in a room full of like 8 people having a conversation and that just generally freaks you out, Tongan kava is perfect for that. And then the Fijian kava is the darkest in color, highest in kava lactone count. So that one is going to give you probably the most like kind of like head euphoria along with what is normally like a body relief kind of thing. So that one's the darkest one. And then the Vanuatu is the most sedative. That one's the best for just like nighttime right before bed. Like I just need a great night's sleep.
Okay, so they kind of each have different chemical compounds and compositions.
Yeah, so I mean, it's very regional, like
Gotcha.
definitely. So it does matter which island you get it from. Like if you really just like want to try kava, it's not going to make like a huge difference which one you get. But once you start drinking it, if you know like what you want to use it for, it definitely can make a difference.
Do all of these cultures have similar ways of drinking it? I know that in the Fijian setting, it was in a coconut shell, and they would serve it to you, you'd drink it, and then you'd clap. Mm-hmm. Is that something that they do?
Yeah, so the two claps is huge. That's, it's like two claps, and you say bula, bula. Yeah, so that's like Samoan for somewhere in between like cheers and namaste. And the two claps essentially is like another round. Like anytime like somebody claps, it's like, all right, we're going again.
Nice.
So yeah, there's a lot of that. I mean, I know the least about the island of Vanuatu. The island of Vanuatu is really small. So I mean, that one's like a little farther out there. But yeah, the Tongans and the Fijians definitely have very specific ways of doing it.
So anyway, back to your story. These Tongan guys come in. They order it by the bowl.
By the bowl, and I mean, and they're the nicest dudes. It's cool to watch them drink it because like there's an acoustic guitar laying around in the shop. So like I'll shut the music off because one of those guys always picks it up, and they're all singing, clapping. Like it's a really like it's a really good time for them. And everyone else, like, I mean, it like permeates throughout the building. Like when they're in there, everyone's hanging out, and they're so inclusive. Like anyone who walks in, it's like they just joined the party. But the one thing that they are very, very weird about, they love Tongan kava. And because like I can tell the difference because I've been drinking it long enough, but really, like if you blindfolded the average person and gave them all three, they're gonna think it's the same thing. They're not gonna be able to tell, and it's so weird because like the one we have Tongan Paniono right now, and then the other one we have is Fijian Lawaka, and if you give them Fijian, they'll call it out. Like they'll touch their lips and they're like, "This is not from the kingdom of Tonga, and not from the island, the kingdom," and they'll kind of talk down on the Fijians a bit.
Just tell them this is the kingdom of Phoenix, man. Okay, this is where you come for kava.
Well, it's funny because they'll kind of like they're very prideful about how good Tongan kava is, and they'll talk down about the Fijians and the Vanuatu people a little bit. And then it's funny because after they leave, this one night there was a Fijian guy in the bar too, and he walks up and goes, "Don't listen to that, man. Everyone in the South Pacific knows Fijians got the best kava." So there's kind of a feud going on.
That's awesome. So I was looking around. I found one story on kava I want to read real quick. So this is a guy who's been using it for a while. So he said, "I've been taking kava for almost a decade now, and it's a great herb for me. I use it mostly for OCD and social anxiety symptoms that I have had since I was a teenager. This kava extract is one of the better ones I've tried here on the store that he bought it, and he's tried at least 5 or 6 over the years. I've gone through 3 bottles so far, and I am always satisfied with the results. What I like most about kava is that even though it affects GABA A receptors like benzodiazepines and alcohol do, kava doesn't make me drowsy at all or mess with my cognition. Now, one of the reasons why it doesn't cause side effects like that is because kava also affects dopamine receptors. I've used it numerous times throughout the years to also help with college regarding things like tests, studying, writing papers, etc. Helps me clear my head and not feel so overwhelmed, especially with the bigger assignments and whatnot. This company is also great too, yada, yada, yada. I highly recommend at least trying kava if you have any problems with insomnia, a type of anxiety, problems with aggression or irritability, stress, or any problems similar to these." And that was pretty much it. So.
Yeah, I mean that sounds about right. I'm not sure specifically on OCD, but there have been a lot of studies on anxiety, and it's interesting because I think one of the cool things to note about it is it chills you out, but it doesn't flatten you out. So a lot of like antidepressants and anti-anxiety pills, I mean, they really make it so you just stay flat. Like you're not going up, you're not going down, you're just kind of exist. Kava loosens you up and chills you out, but you can. I think the thing about it is I think you can still really feel happiness, where I think sometimes with a lot of those other pills, like they make it so you really just like are like you just feel so flat,
Well, cool. I mean, Brian, do you want to talk about your experience with kava at all, or?
It was great. I mean, like I had said, I was in there and I drank a lot of it because they kept on going round and round and round, and everyone was getting more jovial, obviously, as it was going on. And the energy, and I went back a couple nights, but this first night was just incredible, and I just dumped so much of it into my body. And by the time I left there, I mean, I almost felt drunk in the sense that like I was overcome with, kind of that feeling of, I don't really care about anything bad happening right now. I only was focusing on good, and it was really nice. But I did remember everyone clapping with you and how amazing that was, because it was something that was so communal and such a unifying event that these people did every day, I think. They were meeting up and doing this. It really brought the community together, and you felt that. And then everyone clapping and waiting for you to drink it and taking turns. It was really, really cool, and I wish we had something like that here. And we do. We do now.
Lacuna Kava Bar, man. Come check it out.
Yeah, so why don't you tell us about the bar that you work at and, where it is and all that stuff?
Yeah, so Lacuna Kava Bar, it's on 3rd Street, right in the middle of downtown Phoenix. It's a really cool little spot. It's not like the biggest place, but I mean, it's we got some nice patio chairs. It's a really cool vibe. It's not quite as bohemian as some of the other kava bars you'll find. It's a little more like new age. But yeah, we got happy hour Monday through Friday where you get buy one, get ones. Tonight, actually, like right now, while we're talking about this, there's actually having a gong meditation, which is super cool. Yeah, we do some yoga stuff every first Friday. If you're in Phoenix for the first Friday with the Shutdown Roosevelt, we have this super cool like reggae band that plays. I mean, it's a fun spot.
And you were saying that it's the place to go for people who know kava.
Well, so we do. I think the coolest thing that we do, and one of the reasons that I can sit here on this podcast right now, is our education for kava is huge. Like, if you know nothing about kava, you can just show up and we'll walk you through the menu. We'll talk to you about it. We'll give you samples. We'll give you like a whole tour of how to drink kava and what it is, and make sure that it's like what you want and stuff like that. So I mean, that's like honestly, because like if you can absolutely come hang out if you know about kava. Like if you just want to come in, you're like, hey man, I want my Tongan or my Fijian kava. Like I'm gonna just hang out and drink some shells for a while. Absolutely, come on in. We'll hang out with you. But really, where we truly shine is for people who have no idea what it is.
That's pretty cool. And so for those people who don't live in Phoenix, Arizona, kava bars are, cropping up all over the nation. Obviously, some places don't have them yet. But if you don't have a kava bar, you can also get kava off Amazon, off iHerb, etc. And just like we said earlier, you might not want to get the alcohol extracts. Those might have a problem. So you probably want to aim for the powdered herb, or get it in a capsule that's powdered that isn't an extract or something like that.
If you do want an extract, we know the guy specifically who makes the Rhino Dart extract. That's the only kava extract we sell. And that one is like, the guy who makes it's incredible. He's a super smart dude. He's been doing kava for years, and that is a fantastic extract. But I mean, that one's interesting because when he runs out, he's out. Like, I mean, it's not like, it's not one of those where it's like always available.
Is he in Phoenix, local?
No, he's in Hawaii.
Okay. Oh, cool.
Yeah, he makes it on a farm in Hawaii and ships
straight from the source.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, do you have any other stories you want to tell, or?
Oh man, I think when I first started drinking kava, so we have a drink called the Whiteout. It's a double serving of kava plus what we call a bula bomb, which is like a 2-ounce concentrate where we use less water and we massage it forever. It's just super strong. And I used to drink 2 of those and go for a bike ride. I'm a diehard cyclist, and I think kava is a little bit of an anti-inflammatory. And I think the coolest part about it is, it chills you out. You can still ride, you can drive, you can do all this stuff. And I think, like I'm a pretty extreme cyclist. So like for me, going like 30 miles isn't that far. But like the cool thing about it is when it's not your speed day, when it's kind of more just like you just need to go out and run, or you need to go out and ride, or you want to go for a swim, you can drink kava and go do that. And you'll feel real loose, but your body will still function at the same level. And I think like that is something I think I don't think a lot of people talk about that. I don't think, because I think a lot of people use it more like kind of like after to like chill out, which is totally cool. I mean, that's also a great way to do it. But I mean, really, I think the cool thing about kava is, I mean, you can use this stuff and exist in any form that you would normally like do it. Like if work is stressful for you, drink kava during your lunch break. It helps.
Yeah. One interesting thing I always think about is the different regions and what they drink. You think of Germany, what do you think of?
Beer.
Exactly.
Hefeweizens for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you think of Italy, you think of wine, and so it's always interesting to think about why Kava, why in the Pacific Islands. You know, what kind of like survival benefits does it give you? And that's one of the things I wonder about. And so Phoenix here, where we are in California and stuff, that are more, you know, a lot of sun. You know, California definitely has some tropical areas and stuff like that. It makes sense that Kava would be kind of springing up here, whereas, you know, I probably don't see too many Kava bars in Wisconsin. Maybe there are, but.
No, but maybe it grows naturally to deal with the island fever. It's, you know, one of those like, hey, just calm down. You're going to be okay, even though you're on this little rock in the middle of the ocean. Who knows?
Yeah, that's actually really good. You know, maybe it's like, hey, it's yeah, that's perfect.
Well, and ironically, in America, where Kava is the most popular is Florida. Kava bars are huge in Florida. And so, I mean, when you get a lot of the heat and, you know, a lot of like just the funny, crazy stuff that happens in Florida, it kind of makes sense. You know, people found this like chill, like cool route and just ran with it.
Totally. All right, cool. Do we have anything else we want to share?
I'm in awe. I mean, I tell you what, I am so thirsty for Kava now. I can't even tell you. I want some Kava.
Let's go down to the bar, guys.
We should go hit the Kava bar right now.
I'm buying. Let's roll.
All right, we're going to go down to the Kava bar. So thanks for listening, everybody. www.quaxpodcast.com. Please share if you enjoyed this episode. Use our Amazon link on the website if you are shopping on Amazon. It does help us out by giving us some dimes and quarters here and there to help with hosting and all that stuff. Ben, dude, thanks so much for coming on, man.
Dude, anytime. And if you guys do want to buy Kava online, lacunacavabar.com does now have an online shop, so you can check it out there too.
Yeah, definitely go hit up this bar if you guys are in the Phoenix area, because it's a nice little spot. It's got a good vibe. It's got some good music going on, so I definitely enjoyed it.
Do you guys do things like events? People can come out there and have social events out there.
Oh
too.
yeah, so I mean, we try to we try to do meditations and yogas, have music. We do all sorts of random stuff. And if there's ever like an event that you want to have happen there, like it's a small spot, and you'll see the owner Chase Brendel there all the time. You can just ask, be like, hey, can we have this thing here? And we'll probably do it. Like we love stuff like that.
Do you guys cater?
We actually just rolled out our new food menu. So we have like power foods on the go. We have like really like high end like chicken steak and tofu, and then we put it in like red quinoa and brown rice, or like we have like a power food slaw. So we have it, and it comes in a mason jar, so we make it to go. So we have food and like the kava to go.
Nice. All right. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for listening. At QuaxPod on Twitter if you want to follow my updates. I'm getting pretty active on there. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Be well.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Be well.